Hey, Catherine. Thank you so much for joining today on the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Nice to see you, Liz.
Yes, nice to see you and have this time together. So I'm looking forward to hearing your short story and shining the spotlight on the things that you're doing to help caregivers. We kick off the podcast with some words of inspiration and affirmation from the Happy Healthy Caregiver jar. It was a jar that I made once I was transitioning care from myself to my sister as the primary caregiver, and just felt like I wanted to have something a gift for her that she could use every day. So today's bit of inspiration says, never stop learning because life never stops teaching.
Oh, that's a good one.
So I don't know what that makes you think of.
Well, I think all the caregiving experience, because it's really on the job learning, right? As any new situation presents itself.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think sometimes as caregivers, we're potentially guilty of putting our wants and needs on hold, which I try to encourage caregivers not to do that, because we only get one life to live, and there will be a life that we need to set up for ourselves when caregiving ends. So, even while you're caregiving, you can learn to do new things. And I've enjoyed hearing how people are using this pandemic to even learn stuff about. I have an aunt who's learning how to speak Spanish. I've had people I've known to start knitting, or they're using the time at home to learn a new skill. I guess if I was attributing that to the Millers, we've been playing pickleball, which is kind of a cross between
Oh,
tennis
yeah, that's cool.
and ping pong outside as a family, and it kind of spans different age gaps. So I think it makes life's more fun to live when you've got a sense of adventure. So I wanted to, I introduced you a little bit in the bio, but I would love for you to just share a little bit about, your caregiving experience, where you're living, where everybody is right now, just so we can get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. Well, so I guess my story starts when I was in Florida. My parents lived in Delaware, and my father started having what became a 10-year battle with Alzheimer's. So I was a long distance caregiver supporting my mom. She basically handled all the caregiving. She didn't want to put him, somewhere else. She wanted him at home. I have a sister who has been a great support in that too. But my background as an attorney was in corporate law and contracts and banking. And I knew estate planning was important, but it wasn't until I saw firsthand how these different documents work to help with caregiving, in particular something like Alzheimer's. So as my dad's faculties faded, we could step in and handle financial aspects. We could handle medical decisions for him. And it really just hit home of how powerful that is. So in Florida, I took some time off because I had very young children. And when I went back, I started my own practice, really focusing on estate planning, because, it's something, especially with young families, it's something so critical, because you have young children, there's guardianship issues as your parents age. It's certainly a good time to make sure that they have proper documents, such as like a healthcare power of attorney and living will, because you certainly don't want to be making those decisions.
No.
So I actually started a mobile law office. So because our practice, focused with young families, and I just realized they don't have time them and their spouse to make an appointment, go to an office. So I would meet them at their offices or their homes, dogs running around, kids crying, and, going through it. But it's the way to get it done.
Yeah, that's so nice. And I'm imagining that during this pandemic, you had a lot of foresight to do that, because people want the mobile office for other reasons, for the safety of it, even now.
Yes. Yeah. So, even more so, I now hear of a lot of attorneys sort of doing the model I had, which, I'm like, well, it made sense to us a long time ago.
Yeah, you worked out the kinks long ago. I love that. So you were an attorney even before your dad was diagnosed then,
Correct.
and
Yes.
then you honed it down to focus on estate planning based upon the experience that you went through?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It was just really eye-opening, and even lawyers, you take classes about estate planning and everything.
Mm,
And it's not until you're dealing with it personally that, it's just, you realize how important or how it facilitates and helps you.
mm.
So you can focus on the care of your loved one and not have to deal with a lot of red tape.
Yeah, there's a lot of peace of mind knowing that that's already in place. Um, so did you have most of the things in place before your dad was diagnosed?
Yes. As a matter of fact, years before he started showing signs of Alzheimer's, he had said to me, look, if something happens to me,
Mm,
I don't, I know your mother and she'll hook me up to every single machine and I don't want that. And I said, well, I respect your wishes, but I'm not going to fight with mom. So if you feel strongly about this, go to a lawyer, get the documents drawn up so that when something happens or if something happens, you know, we have your instructions. And so there's no drama. So he did that. And I mean, thank God he did, because we used every single estate planning document,
mm.
everywhere from his healthcare power of attorney to his financial power of attorney, to his living will. And it just
Oh,
made the process easier, because when we had to make decisions, like, 6 months before he died, he was hospitalized, and the doctors sort of presented as, well, he could have a surgery, but he probably won't survive it, or we could not do the surgery and he probably won't survive it. And so what do you do? And my
thanks.
mom's like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
we have to do everything we can. And I pulled out the document. I said, this is what dad wanted. And, miraculously, he improved
Mm.
and lived for another 6 months. But, then the question was like, well, what if we did the surgery? Would have been okay? So, um, yeah, we just had such a easier time of it,
Mhm.
because we could follow his wishes.
It's so good. I know. It's one of the things that the conversations can't start early enough, really, because anything can happen to any of us at any point. So, but definitely as our folks are getting older in age, we want to have those conversations. Um, I know that you talk about those. I think I was seeing on your site the 5 important conversations to have, and you mentioned the finance and health, and I think it was finance and health, and oh, what did I do with
We have
mine?
aging. So,
Yeah,
sort of like, as you get older, do you want to, age in place? Should we start looking at, facilities you might like, end of life talk,
end of
which
life.
is which
Yes,
is difficult, of like, with the one I had with my father, of like, look, if you have specific wishes, let's get that in writing. What do you want us to do? What don't you want us to do? And then I think an important talk is the family legacy talk, meaning,
yes,
um, tell us about yourself, you know, uh, write down on the back of these pictures, who these people are, definitely get the family recipes down. There's all sorts of things that,
and the
you
little
don't want to
knickknacks
lose.
and things that have stories behind it that you might not necessarily know
Yes,
why they're important, and then later you're going through your loved ones' things and you're wishing you knew these things. So I think
absolutely.
that of all of the conversations, that's probably the one that's the most fun. So
Yeah, exactly.
um,
Yes.
and to even record some of them if possible, but they're it's important to have all of those conversations. And I know it's you focus on the sandwich generation in
Mhm.
particular, when you share your resources and your materials, and your book that you wrote is called Estate Planning for the Sandwich Generation: How to Help Your Parents and Protect Your Kids. Curious, first of all, there might be people out there who don't know what the sandwich generation is. So I'd love to
Mhm.
get a definition on that. And then why you chose to focus on that particular segment of caregivers.
Okay. Well, Yeah, I kind of feel like you don't know about the sandwich generation unless you really live in it.
Mm,
So it's a situation where you have young children that you care for, as well as aging parents. Either you're physically caring for them or at least worrying about them as they age. And so you can get pulled in many different directions, and it's just a constant juggling act. And what I learned, firsthand and in my practice is that you really need the proper estate planning, because if you have young children, you have to be concerned with issues such as guardianship. If
mm,
something happens to you, who's going to take care of your kids? If you have older parents, you want them to get their estate planning in order so you don't have to make tough decisions for them, or
mm.
run to a lawyer if they're suddenly hospitalized and, doctors won't talk to you. Um, so,
There's a
you
lot
know,
of, like you said, competing priorities, things to think about.
and also because if you're the caregiver, you have a lot of dependents, people depending on you.
Hmm.
If something happened to you, if you're suddenly hospitalized, who's going to take over for you? So you have to do your own estate planning as well.
Mm, that's a good point. And that too needs to happen at any age, right?
Oh
That,
yeah, and I think the a misconception with estate planning, there's many, but is that it's something for when you die. But actually, estate planning is much more helpful and meaningful as you progress through life. 1 in 4 people go through some sort of disability, and
hmm,
so having powers of attorney documents are important.
hmm.
So um,
It's funny, we just went through, so my kids are both over 18,
oh
and with the pandemic stuff, that just even accelerated my need to get that done for them.
yes, a
The
lot of
power of
parents,
attorney.
yeah, a lot of
You're
parents don't
reading these
realize that
documents.
once their
Yes.
kids turn 18, you can't call their doctor
Yeah.
because of HIPAA regulations. So yeah, that's something I always tell my clients and friends, like when we have college age kids, like, okay, now it's time to get them to sign the power of attorney documents, because people travel all the time. If you're in one state and call on the phone, because of HIPAA privacy, they may not release information. I mean, a drastic example was my father was hospitalized. My sister was standing next to him at the hospital bed, and they called me.
Mm.
So because I was named first on the power of
Power of
attorney document.
attorney. Okay.
So and different hospitals, act differently. So it's so important, again, for the red tape and for, you know, minimizing the chaos during chaos.
Yes. Yeah, so true. Yeah, I'm glad I have it. It's just peace of mind just even knowing I have it. And but they were funny when they were signing it. It's like, "Why do you want my house and my this and that?" I'm like, "Well, if something happens to you, we want to be able to protect your best, your
Yes.
best interest at heart. We don't really
Right.
want your stuff." But,
Right.
you know, um but it was cute. It was a cute conversation about it, and I'm glad I have it. So you talked about how you were a long distance caregiver too. I want to go back to that for a second and just find out a little bit like how you were able to support your mom and your dad from a distance. Like what kinds of things were you able? I think people struggle with that. They don't quite understand how they can still be a part of the care team.
Yeah, I think you know, you can do as much, I mean, not obviously in person, but there is a lot of things you can do.
Hmm.
And I was lucky in the fact that I have a sister who
Mm.
um, lives about 2 hours away from my parents. And anytime there was a medical issue, she'd go to doctor's appointments so she could hear what was being said. I took over the legal and financial. So I would be, filling out the health forms and, um, working on the medical billing and, paying the bills. So we kind of had a very good plan of anything medical she would handle, anything financial I would handle. So if
Mm.
my mom got stuck somewhere, she would know who to call.
Yeah.
And there was a lot I did. I would fly there probably every 3 months or so
Mhm.
to meet with caregivers that we had helping out. We met with hospice, I arranged that. And so there's lots of things you could do, such as phone calls and research. And
Mhm.
I know one time my mother was hospitalized, and she was recuperating in my sister's. And, obviously I couldn't do anything because I live a coast away. Now I'm in California.
Mm.
Um, but I would send them meals.
Yeah.
I had meals delivered to them in the evening because the last thing she needs to do is cook. And I also did things because my father was battling Alzheimer's disease, and we really knew very little about it. Uh, Even though I was in Florida, they were in Delaware, I went to the local Alzheimer support group.
Mm.
And really just to hear stories of what other people were going through who are further down the process. And that sort of triggered like, oh, we should have a meeting with hospice, because they can actually, once you have a diagnosis, many times hospice can step in and offer services,
Mm.
something nobody knows,
Yeah, people
so.
think you've got to be on, your loved one has to be on death's door, so to speak, before they use that. And it's a misconception.
Yes. So, I mean, I thought that was extremely helpful. So I do tell people, like, if you can't be there physically to do things, things like going to support groups or doing research, and, there are many, many things you could do to help out the people who are actually, the
Right.
day-to-day caregivers.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm now in a situation where I'm a long distance caregiver for my mom. And I call myself a self care bully for my sister, because I want to make sure that, she doesn't burn out, and, that she's keeping her energy sources up, because God forbid something does happen to her
Mhm.
as well. So, do you serve that kind of role with your mom or your sister to just make sure they're taking care of themselves?
Yeah, I mean, well, my sister is just a rock star. So,
Good.
yeah, she's really good. And yeah, I try to keep up, and we're just always in constant communication. So my sister and I always know when to sort of step in and help out with things. And yeah, she's been
I
so
think that's
wonderful.
the I noticed that when we're in constant communication, it's things just seem to flow better. And, if I don't hear from my sister like in a week or something, I just worry that, and usually I'll call and it's like, well, this happened, this happened. It's like,
Mhm.
just to kind of stay in the loop and be that companion and support person for them, to talk, because if you don't hear from them, it's not necessarily a good thing. Silence is not always a good thing. So just to be that one to kind of initiate the communication. And I think a communication with your parents too, as long as you can, your aging parents, because that gives them a form of companionship. I think sometimes the person whose boots on the ground is so
Mhm.
absorbed in all of the everything, that they can't also feel that companion part and the loneliness part. In
Yeah, I
such
think
a
just
way.
even like, sometimes I send care packages or
Yeah,
something for my sister, just, to cheer her up and let her know that she's not alone, that
yeah,
I'm willing to help any way I can. And
that goes a
yeah,
long
I think
way.
that does help.
That goes a long way for sure. Um, so tell us a little bit more about the book. Like what kinds of things, what made you write it? What kind of things could a caregiver expect to get out of it?
Okay, so when I moved, I had a estate planning practice in Florida. My husband got a great job in California, so we moved the whole family to California. And I'm passionate about estate planning and talking to people about it. That was one of the things I loved best about my practice. And I sort of figured out, well, I could start again, take the bar, set up a law practice, get clients. But I thought, well, writing a book, I could reach more people.
Mm,
And people can't always arrange to meet with an attorney and everything like that. So I thought that would be somewhat helpful. And I certainly learned a lot from my personal experience of things like, wow, I wish I knew this before we started our caregiving journey. So I really wanted to put, you know, the legal with the practical
mm,
of, here's what you should be doing estate planning wise. Why is it important? How does it directly impact the caregiving experience? And really also to talk about resources for caregivers. You know, I think a lot of people get so hyper focused of, they try to do everything that they don't realize, and they don't have time, frankly, to step back and realize there's a lot of resources there. There's a lot of
yeah.
help out there. So I kind of wanted to put it all together in a very easy to read. Again, caregivers have limited um, time to focus on this, but lay it out in a very simple guide of.
Well, I think you definitely achieve that, because I know I had
Thank you.
read it and found a lot of things that were very, like you said, practical, but also with your experiences, you humanize it. So it's not just like you're reading the legalese or anything like that. It's very, anybody can relate to it type of thing.
Yeah.
So
I kind of call it the, what to expect when you're expecting the worst,
yeah, there
It's
you
sort of
go.
like,
That's a good way to look at it. And you have a generous offer that folks can take advantage of that are listening to the podcast. So you want to share that?
yeah. So anyone who, gets on your website,
They
you'll
can send me
do,
an email.
yeah, send an email, and you'll do a drawing at the end of, I believe, the month, you
Yeah, the
said,
end
or
of August. So if you're
end of
listening to
August.
this, August 2020, we'll pull the winner. We'll give it through August, and then we'll pull the winner in September. But it'd be anybody who's currently, a new subscriber since listening to the podcast, to the to my email news list, and then anyone who's a current subscriber can just send me an email through the contact page on happyhealthycaregiver.com, and we'll put you into the drawing. So that's a great gift. So, and then we'll
Yeah.
let
So
the winner.
I'll send an autographed copy of the book,
Perfect.
with a little like note of like, get this done.
Yeah, a little tough love type
Yes. Yeah.
type of thing. And then for everybody that can benefit, you have something called a 911 binder.
Yes. So on my website, which is www.hodderink.com, I have a page that has family binder forms. So one thing I always prepared for my estate planning clients was a binder that had a place for all their legal forms, all their medical forms, financial information, because if somebody suddenly goes to the hospital, and I discovered that with my dad when he was suddenly hospitalized. Uh, you know, I said to my mom, well, are quarterly taxes being paid? And she's like, I don't know, so it's one place where you can go to get important information. And I encourage people to fill out the forms and tell your loved ones where the book is.
And
And
then
it's something they can download forms, a couple forms, or there's a bundle, so that they can put together their own 911 binder.
that's perfect. So I will link to that. Every episode has a accompanying show notes page. So I'll be sure to link to how people can get the 911 binder. And of course, we'll remind everybody on the book giveaway as well. Before we hit into the lightning round, I got to ask you, what kinds of things are you doing for your own self-care now?
So yeah, it's a with COVID, it's certainly a new level. But I honestly find walking is really therapeutic. And I actually, my mom's on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast. I can't fly there. It's really difficult. So I really look forward to my daily walks where I call her on the phone and we just chat. And it's just something very therapeutic for me. I tried to teach myself guitar. That was a disaster. So I'm doing crochet now, which is,
Great.
it's fun
See,
to kind
yeah,
of like do new things. And so,
trying new things. There you go.
so
Just
yeah.
makes life a little bit more interesting. And what's your mom's situation now?
So she's, well, she'll kill me. She's 81, but in great health, thank God. And really, she's going to outlive me. So she's wonderful. In the past, she's had difficulties with pneumonia and her back going out, which was kind of a frightening thing, but she bounced back. She's better than ever. And yeah, so
So
she's
she's found life for herself after caregiving.
she is sort of the poster child for really being a survivor, and
Nice.
she travels when she can. She was snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef a
Oh
couple
my
years ago.
goodness.
So yeah, she's really great.
That's
So
awesome. That's so
yeah,
good to hear. Okay, so we ready for the lightning round? We're
I
gonna
think so.
pull
Yes.
some questions from the this is my journal, the Just For You daily self-care journal. And so it's just, there are daily prompts. There's 365 prompts. that just get people thinking about how to be more intentional about their self-care, maybe get to know themselves a little better. I like it because it also could be like you're basically leaving behind a little bit of a family legacy within the pages of the book when you're completed. And there's some monthly fun activity pages. So I pulled out a couple of things to ask you, Catherine. So when you are older and you need care, what do you hope someone does for you?
You know, this is sort of terrible, but I always tell, my husband, I'm like, if something really bad happens, just put me in a home. Just like I don't want you caring for me. I don't want you, putting your life on hold. I don't want my kids, you know, suffering. I'm like, I'm fine. Just, put me in a home. And I also am very adamant, I have a living will, and I'm absolutely about, don't install the plug. And that's what people I think worry about the living will is like, oh, I'm on life support and they pull the plug. It's like, no, they really don't put you on life support. So I'm very adamant about that of do not, if I'm at end stage death, there is no reason to install things to keep me going.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good that I'm proud that you're practicing what you preach and that you that you have a plan in place for yourself is good. Okay. Let's see, sometimes I got to pick between the two. It's hard. So you don't have to close your eyes, but close your eyes and picture something good happening in your life. What do you visualize?
You know what? Last year, my family and I, to celebrate my mother's 80th birthday, my sister's family and my family, we all went to Europe together on a cruise. Best thing we ever did. And we just can't wait to do it again.
Was it the Rhine River cruise or one of the river cruises? Or
we did like a Italy, Greek cruise, and it was just fantastic. I mean, my sister and I were like, any week that we don't have to be responsible for meals is just
perfection. I'm with you. It's not a vacation if I've got to cook. But I do want to eat. I want to do a lot of eating.
Exactly. We did that too.
That sounds fun. And those are good eating countries. And so this is a timely question. Last question is in what ways do you combat loneliness or isolation for yourself, particularly now?
Well, I mean, I still have young kids, so I don't really have a lot of loneliness. But as I said, like I talk to my mother every day. We have a very close bond. My sister and I are very close. So
that's good.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Sometimes I think even with kids and stuff, like you can still be lonely even with there's a lot of people around. Like
that's true.
Yeah, it's like you got to have the people that you can really share the nitty-gritty with. We use an app in my family and with some of my girlfriends during pandemic is Marco Polo, where you just share little video clips, and it's nice because unlike a text that kind of interrupts you all the time, you can go into the app and check it when you want to and share. And if you want to talk at midnight, you can talk at midnight and it's not going to ding somebody's phone. And so we really enjoy that. And it helps kind of show each other what we're doing in our lives and keep each other updated with these little segments. So I'm a fan of that. They don't pay me, but that's a great app to get you to anything that you wish we would have talked about that you feel like you want to add, or just parting words of wisdom, anything
one thing I think I mentioned many times in my book, and it's something that I think people should realize, is that when talking to your aging parents about their future, it may not be easy. They are suddenly in a role where you're stepping in to take care of them. They're not comfortable with that because they're the parent. So it's something to keep in mind that it's an ongoing conversation. I urge people to sort of get your house in order first, meaning go through your estate planning to know what questions to ask. And so you could mention, hey, I named my sister as my financial power of attorney. If you couldn't make financial decisions, have you named somebody? What would you want? Like I'm looking into life insurance for my spouse and myself. Do you have a life insurance policy, and where is it? Because one thing, that people may not know is that life insurance companies aren't obligated to notify
Mm.
next of kin when somebody dies. So if you have an insurance policy and you don't tell people about it, they may not know
Like you
to
didn't have
collect.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah,
That's a
that's something that I found very, very surprising.
Yeah, we went through a little bit of that with when my dad passed. It's like my mom wasn't so clued in all the details. Um, and we had to do some treasure hunting to find out what,
Yeah, absolutely.
who to contact and what to do. So, but mostly I'd say we were fairly well organized with everything. So I'm grateful that my dad put us in that situation.
Hmm.
And same with my mom. We will be in good shape for her. If somebody lives in California, do you still do house calls, or is
No, I don't practice now.
okay? You
Yeah.
got a lot going on. So
Yeah, but I'm happy to refer people and talk to them,
yes.
because I'm passionate about it. And I just think it's so important for people to do for their young kids, for their aging parents, for themselves. So,
When we talked about the getting the kids stuff, one of the sites that I found that was easy, that I could just, like you said, pull out the forms and get it done and get somebody to notarize it. And I don't know if you've heard it, is mamabear.com. It's kind of a funny
oh
name.
no, that's great.
Yeah, it made it pretty easy. Pick your state and then kind of,
Okay, yeah, that's important because each state has it's different
yes.
for each state.
Yeah, and then it's funny. It's like I know notaries around me and never knew they were notaries. So, um, some of my girlfriends, so that made it easy to just
That's
get it
great.
done that way. But
Yeah.
so there might be others, but that's the one that I know of that was
Mhm.
for my situation. But I think this is valuable stuff. I hope that, we're not trying to give you and should on people and give them one more thing to do, but I think this is a win-win for everybody if they can, like you said, get their own house in order and help get their aging parents' house in order. We all, none of us are getting out of this life alive. It's an inevitable thing, and we
Yeah.
spend so much time planning for other things. These are important things to just kind of put
Mhm.
our family in a good situation. So I appreciate that you've used your experiences and are, giving back to the caregiving community by sharing your wisdom and making it just a little bit easier for these people who have a ton on their plate.
Mhm.
So thank you, Catherine.
No, thank you. Thanks for chatting with me.
Yes, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.